Okay, my friends, anybody that has an electronics background understands that when you spin something that is magnetic inside of another magnetic zone, it opposes it. And when it opposes it, it creates a generator effect, and it creates electric currents. That's what generators are. This is a motor. This is a DC motor. I put 12 volts on here, plus and minus. It's going to spin. That's, I'm running it with electricity. Well, guess what? If I run this by hand, it spits out electricity backwards out of here. That's what's happening here. This is spinning in a soup of magnetic particles, and it is creating huge magnetic lines of flux that flow off of the surface and bubble up and boil up. And the temperature down here is relatively cold. Up here it's hotter than hell because this is where the particles scrub. It's spinning against these, crushing itself into these. That's what's going on with the sun. It has nothing to do with nuclear radiation from down below. Otherwise it would be bazillions of degrees up here and less and less and less up here. It's just the opposite. All right, so let's take it for reality, all right?
Stay put for world-ending coronal mass ejections, real video of the sun's surface with sound, and incredible images of our sun as you've never seen it before. At the center of our solar system is the one thing that has made life on our world possible, the sun, a blazing ball of plasma.
Now notice the sunspots. You know, these really bright spots. They move, and I believe they are actually literally like mountains on the sun.
Radiating heat and light, with structures as large as the state of Texas, propelled by convection currents around its surface, and a mass so large it keeps every object in our solar system spinning around. In today's video, we're going to explore the mysteries of the biggest object in our nearby space and show you the sun as you've never seen it before.
All right, we're going to go a little deeper now. I'm just going to follow it straight through and we'll talk it
We
as
all
we
know
go
that
along.
the sun is the most important part of our solar system. Not only do all of the planets orbit it, without the sun, we would not have the light or warmth to sustain life on planet Earth. But while the sun is a good thing for us on Earth, getting much closer would be a pretty bad idea. That's because the sun is in fact a giant sphere of superheated ionized gases.
All right, when he said it's a giant sphere of ionized gases, when you talk about ionized, it means that they're stripped of electrons. And electrons are turned into plasma and soup, and which is pretty much all true. But it's not what they're thinking. It's not from an internal fusion event, which is what they're talking about. And I think he'll get into that, but here goes.
As far as composition goes, the sun is made up of 70% hydrogen, 28% helium, and then a variety of carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen to make up a further 1.5%.
I want to tell you something right now. I have zero idea what the sun is made of. They have no idea whatsoever. All they are seeing is the particle emissions.
Some smaller elements like neon, iron, silicon, magnesium, and sulfur make up the remaining 0.5%. As time passes and the sun continues to burn, those percentages will slowly change. The reason the sun is shining at all is because of the nuclear fusion reaction powering its extremely hot core.
Total nonsense.
This occurs due to how much mass the sun holds. At its core, the force of gravity is so strong that hydrogen atoms are squeezed together until eventually they merge. 4 hydrogen atoms merged together will create 1 helium atom, with some of the hydrogen atom's mass being converted to heat and light as a result.
There will be a ton of particles being forced against each other and electrons being emitted, yes, absolutely. But as far as this helium fusion business goes, that's possible that it is creating helium. All right, I don't know what the sun is made of, but I can tell you what, it's not functioning the way they are talking about. It's either entirely made of electrons in a soup that is so crushed, which I agree, the force against each other will be extremely violent, and that's what is forcing them all to glow. That's what happens when the particles are forced together. I have no disagreement with that. But saying that they're all forced into helium and that's what creates all these extra electrons, I don't agree with that. Because now you're coming into that nuclear proton, neutron situation, and I don't disagree with that 100%. I say they're all electrons. Now, how they are exactly interacting with each other, that remains to be seen.
From planet Earth, the sun looks like a rather stable celestial body, but closer inspection reveals that the roiling plasma that makes up the sun is anything but. Solar flares occasionally rip out of the surface of the sun, shooting particles out into space in what is known as coronal mass ejection. These solar flares are thought to be caused by something known as magnetic reconnection. They are a sudden explosion of energy caused by the tangling or crossing of magnetic field lines.
Let's discuss that. Coronal mass ejections, mass coronal ejections. We know that we're scrubbing out here is where our extreme temperature is and our magnetic interface is. All right? Now, so we know out here is where the magnetic lines of flux are being forced against, they're creating these magnetic lines of flux because these particles are forcing against these particles. Now, if you have an extreme amount of... Okay, so don't forget, this is the real trueness of the sun. Its temperature is not from internal, it's from the external scrub of us going through the solar system, through the particles. And the Earth has the same effect. And as you know, electron flood theory says that every single thing there is made of electrons. So all the nucleuses are just accumulations of resonance stable frequency quantities of electrons. They would say it's so many protons and so many neutrons. I say multiply 1837, I believe, and 1838 times neutrons and protons, and then you will have the number of actual electrons that exist in the nucleus. And then there'll be some more that want to get into the nucleus, but there will be just enough push to say, no, you guys can stay, 7 of you or so many of you can stay right around here, but you have to stay exactly that far away because I'm going to be pushing you and you're going to be trying to attract to me in an exact amount. That's what's called quantum. And that's what puts things at quantum distances from the nucleuses. But the nucleuses are not positive and these are not totally negative. Otherwise, they would just snap together. It's never worked. It's never been right since it was conceptualized. It's just been brushed off and pasted over just like everything else in science. It's time to look and address the things instead of run away from the truths. And I know I keep going down this road, but every single thing in science is the same right now. Not a single word will be addressed that steps up against the geniuses that were, Einstein and all these people that were supposed to be the ones that made the rules. Well, they made all the wrong rules and we followed them, and now everybody is forced to say those things, even though they know they're wrong now. So let's take this, because we got all kinds of new information, and it's time to step up and really, you know, the universities have disgraceful failures. Anyway.
Stay put for world-ending coronal mass ejections, real video of the sun's surface with sound, and incredible images of our sun as you've never seen it before. At the center of our solar system is the one thing that has made life on our world possible, the sun. A blazing ball of plasma radiating heat and light, with structures as large as the state of Texas, propelled by convection currents around its surface, and a mass so large it...
All right, my friends, I see no reason to do this over again. I'm going to just quickly again refresh the fact that the nucleus of all atoms is made out of electrons. Each one of these is a magnetic particle. It has a positive and a negative side to it, basically. And they are electrons in my world, and they are dipoles. However, as this will explain, only one side of that magnetic particle has any energy. All right, so here goes. And then I'm going to show you about the sun, because the sun is fully not understood as well. If it's 6,000 degrees on the surface of the sun, and it's millions out here at the coronosphere, how did it get so hot? They have no explanation for that whatsoever. Totally dismiss it and go work around it. I understand it, and I understand it because of electron flood theory. And it's the scrub of the electrons. Here we go. These are the electrons. This is a helium atom. It has enough electrons in the core to be equivalent to 2 protons, 2 neutrons, which is, it ends up being 7,350 electrons in here. And don't forget, as I said, there is nothing but electrons that exist. Every single thing there is, 100% of the universe is made of electrons added together in different stable formations called atoms. Now, the positive ones huddle in the center, the negative ones surround them, crushing them in, and then these negatives try to come in, but these negatives keep them away. It's called the strong force and the weak force. Photons are made of a box of electrons, just like this, and I will show you that uno momento. And when they are at rest and everybody is at the same temperature, they sit just like this. All electrons are basically like this. They have a positive part, which is the black part, has no interaction with anything. And then it has the red part, which is, it could be red, it could be blue, it could be green. But it's basically white is the extreme portion of it. And then it glows white as it interacts. But they are all dipoles, 100%. Here we go. And when they are being forced against other electrons, that is called heat, they concuss and glow, and depending upon how much interaction, how much glow. Now, this is light. This is a red pulse laser, and it is just coming through the air, not concussing too much. And then Rod Warren designed a venturi that is here that accelerates the light particle, and it pulls it out of its concussive magnetic region, because it's in here. But as it goes, everybody out here has to get out of the way because it's like a ball of magnetism. Now, he's accelerated it, so it pulled it right out of the ball, and it's being sucked right out of there. And as it does, as I said, when they concuss, they glow. I can't explain that, but they glow. And only the red ones glow, only the white particle part glows. And then it just becomes concussive and glows all over the place. I go through this in extreme details, and I'm sure too much for most people. Now, as I told you before, they create a box of electrons. That's what I consider to be the photon. And this is, as they slow down, we can see them. And when I say slow down, yes, light can accelerate, and light can slow down, and light spins, and light actually can create this kind of an effect, which this is the only one I've ever seen of this. And I think that's an antiparticle creating whatever it is. Now, this is, I have no clue. This is the accelerated light spinning to the right, which is the right-hand rule, and is drifting to the left, which is what we see. And this is concussing, you know, it's getting tighter and tighter, so it's slowing down. Now, as I told you before, these particles, there's a strong and a weak force. And the black part can walk right away from the powerful part. The black ones will actually touch each other and not, like, they'll be huddled up in the center. That's okay, they don't mind that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break off of this one. You should come up here and watch this in its entirety, because, as in my humble opinion, it is quite good, and you should show it to your physics professor and ask him to explain what they are seeing here. Because I guarantee you they won't be able to explain it, and I can almost guarantee you that they will demean you and walk away from this with no explanation whatsoever. That is the academic way. I'm sorry, but that is the way. Now, we're going to go to this reality of what we are in the solar system. Our sun at 6,000 degrees on the surface and millions of degrees out here is obviously not the source of heat from here. The source of heat is out here. Now, the sun itself is enormous, and it probably does have a lot of crushing, causing the particles to be turned into literally a soup of electrons. No structure to speak of that I would think would exist under those pressures, if those pressures in fact are correct, according to what gravity, they speak about gravity. And at this point, I'm not 100% certain that it has anything to do with the mass. I think it has to do with the mass and what it's rubbing against. So in all practical effect, yes, it is the mass which will create more and more and more heat, which forces more and more and more electrons into the mass, which makes it more and more of a soup. So I guess I can go along with the fact that the sun itself will be literally nothing but a boiling ball of electrons. Now, the only thing that bothers me is I see these sunspots, and I literally think they are mountains on the sun. And I'm going to show you why, because there was a shot I found of a solar eclipse. Now let's take a look at it. All right, now look at this. This is a solar eclipse. This is the moon, and the sun is behind it, and all we can see is the radiance of the sun obscured the rays coming this way because of the moon. So what do you see here? You see that? You see that? You see this? What is going on with that? That's like red looking, like, you know, I'm thinking these are mountains. I'm going to tell you, I'm thinking that is what's going on the sun. Now, the sun, I'm sure, is a right-hand spin, which is what almost everything is. That's called the right-hand rule. So, as it spins this way, it would, that would be the effect you would see, would be a real hard push this way and a brilliant glow. As it comes around this way, it's coming back at us as it's going. So its natural intention is to come this way anyway. So we lose this intensity. You see this? So this is in, making this effect, and this is spinning back at us, bringing this feathered effect back with it. Now, these are the poles. So the sun is obviously spinning, and they have a south pole and a north pole, and it creates huge magnetic lines of flux around it which oppose the other particles that it is pushing into. And the same thing has happened with us. It's identical. So here on the surface of the sun, if this was the sun, and it is basically covering exactly the surface of the sun, this would be 6,000 degrees. All right, 6,000. Then you'd go way out here and it would be millions of degrees. Now, how could it increase from here to there? There's no explanation whatsoever. They have zero explanation, but they just go with it. This would be the scrub. It's spinning, scrubbing. It owns this much atmosphere. It's not just down here that's scrubbing. It owns out here. That's why it's millions out here and 6,000 down here. Now, the magnetic radiance is going to emanate from here. Yes, absolutely. And then you're going to see these loops and so forth. These may just be loops. They may have nothing to do with mountains. They just might be the magnetic loops. But, it does look kind of interesting. And then you can actually see a Higgs field pouring off of the edge of the sun. You see it? Look at that. I just noticed that. I hadn't seen that before. Because you could get a Higgs field off of your finger. Watch this. All right, you see, that's what they're looking for, these patterns, or these Higgs patterns. Well, I'm working with light. I'm not working with these big chunks of matter. They're crashing nucleuses together. Light is thousands and thousands of times smaller than the particles they're using. However, the patterns will be very, very similar. But the particles I'm working with are at the extreme lowest size particle, which is the electron photon. Okay, this just came out today. They're looking for dark matter and dark energy. Well, all it is the particles flowing away from the sun. I just showed you what particles are of light. Where do you think the light comes from? Obviously it has to transit space to get to us. They are particles. They are dark until they concuss. Simple as that. Dark matter, dark energy is light.